Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is the 26th episode of the summary of the Quran, and tonight we are going to do 4 Madinan surahs of the 6th group. I mentioned last night that the 6th group of surahs has 17 surahs, 7 of which, the first 7 are Meccans, and the subsequent 10 are Madinan surahs. So we've done with the Meccan surahs. Now we are going to move towards the Madinan surahs. There are 10 in all. We'll do the first 4 tonight. Surah Al-Hadid and Surah Al-Mujadallah, they are a pair. Like all 10 surahs are in the form of 5 pairs. In Surah Al-Hadid, the Almighty is motivating believers to spend their wealth in the way of God and also to undertake jihad, which was necessitated because the Almighty had decided to inflict His punishment on the enemy through the hand swords of the believers. He's promised these believers that if they're going to be true to their commitment with God, He is going to ensure that they get high, lofty status, places in the next life as well as this life. The next surah, Surah Al-Mujadallah, is dispelling the negative propaganda that was orchestrated by the disbelievers, just to make sure that this newly emerging faith, which is now getting stronger and stronger, is somehow silenced. We start with the first few verses of Surah Al-Hadid. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sabbaha lillahi ma fis samawati wal ard. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth is doing tasbih of God, is exalting Him, declaring Him free from all weaknesses and errors. وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ, and He is mighty, exalted in might and wise. لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, to Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. يُحْيِي وَيُمِيتُ, He gives life and He causes death to happen. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, and He has control over everything. He is competent to do everything. Huwa al-awwalu, He is the first. Wal-akhir, and the last. Wal-zahir, and the apparent. Wal-batin, and the hidden. That is, He is the first and there is nothing before Him. He is the last and there is nothing after Him. He is the apparent and there is nothing that can encompass Him. And He is hidden, there is nothing that can penetrate Him. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ, and He has knowledge of everything. All existence is within the grips, the grasp of His knowledge. We move on to verse 7, where the Almighty is saying to the believers, Aminu billahi wa rasulihi, believe in God, that is, believe sincerely and properly in God, wa rasulihi, and His messenger, wa anfiqu, and spend, mimma ja'alakum mustakhlafina fi, spend from the wealth of which we have made you custodians. That is, this wealth is ours, we have given it to you to try you, we want you to spend some part of it in our way. فَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَأَنْفَقُوا, so those amongst you who believe and spend, lahum ajrun kabir, there is going to be great reward for them. وَمَا لَكُمْ, addressing the weaker Muslims, the Almighty is saying, وَمَا لَكُمْ, what has happened to you, لَا تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, that you are not believing in God properly. which really means that you're not spending properly, because that was a part of the expectation of belief. What has happened to you? You're not believing in God properly. وَالرَّسُولُ يَدْعُوكُمْ لِتُؤْمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ. While the messenger is inviting you to believe in your Lord. وَقَدْ أَخَذَ مِيثَاقَكُمْ. And he has already taken a covenant, a promise from you, in kuntum mu'minin, if you are true believers, truly believing. Let's move on to verse 10, which says, وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Again the same message, but now it is worded differently. وَمَا لَكُمْ, and what has happened to you, أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, that you are not spending in the way of God. وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Whereas to Allah belongs, to God belongs the heritage of everything that is in the heavens and the earth. You will go. He will remain the owner, the possessor of everything. He is the one who has the heritage of everything. لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل. Be absolutely sure, those who will have spent their wealth before the victory, conquest of Mecca, and those who will spend later their wealth, they will not be the same. They will not be equal in status in the eyes of God. In other words, the more testing, trying the circumstances, the more rewarding is the good deeds, are the good deeds which people do. أُولَٰئِكَ أَعْظَمُ دَرَجَةً مِّنَ الَّذِينَ أَنفَقُوا مِن بَعْدُ وَقَاتَلُوا. Those people who spent their wealth before the conquest of Mecca, they will have far greater rewards compared to those who spent and fought later. وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. However, we have promised each group a good reward. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. And God is fully informed about what you do. Moving on to verse 11, the Almighty says, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا. Who is the one who will give God a good loan? God, out of His mercy and kindness, He says that the wealth that He has given us, if we spend some part of it in His way for charity or for the betterment of His message, He will take it as a loan for Himself and will return it, multiplying it many times more. That's what His kindness is. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا. Who is there who will give God a good loan? فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ, so that He should multiply it for him. وَلَهُ أَجْرٌ كَرِيمٌ. And for him is going to be a noble reward. Reward that will be given to him, with him getting respect. يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Imagine the time, imagine the day when تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, you will see believing men and believing women, يَسْعَى نُورُهُمْ, that their light is running, proceeding, بَيْنَ أَيْدِهِمْ, ahead of him, وَبِأَيْمَانِهِمْ, and on their right. They will be there in a place which will be otherwise dark, but the light of their faith and good deeds is going to brighten things up for them and their surroundings. Bushrakumul yawm, it will be said to them, good news, good tidings for you today. Jannatun tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, that is of the gardens of paradise, underneath which rivers would flow, rivers are flowing. Khalidina fiha, they shall abide therein forever. Zalika huwal fawzul azim, and that is a great achievement, a great success indeed. Yawma yaqulu al-munafiquna wal-munafiqat, the day when hypocrite men and hypocrite women would say, lillazina amanu, to believers, unzuruna, wait for a while, naqtabis min nurikum, we would also like to take some part of your light. give some part of your light to us as well. And they will say to them, قِيلَ ارْجِعُوا, it will be said to them, return, go back, وَرَاءَكُمْ, from where you come, go back. فَالْتَمِسُوا نُورًا, and find light for yourself from there. فَضُرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ لَهُ بَابٍ, and a wall will be placed between them, بَاطِنُهُ فِيهِ الرَّحْمَةِ, with a door, its interior containing mercy, وَظَاهِرُهُ مِنْ قِبَلِهِ الْعَذَابِ, but on the outside it would be punishment and torment. Then we move on to verse 16, where the Almighty is saying, Alam yani lillazina amanu. It's addressing the weak believers. Alam yani lillazina amanu. Has not the time come for those people who believe, an taksha qulubuhum, that their hearts should humbly submit, they should get softer, lizikrillah, for remembering God, wama nazala min al-haq, and should be inclined towards what He has revealed, what has been revealed in the form of truth. وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ, and that they should not become the likes of those who were given the book earlier, min qabl, فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ. And so what happened was that when a good time went past, and they continued to do what was wrong, فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, their hearts got hardened. وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, and many of them are disobedient, defiantly disobedient. So don't be like them, because that's a great tragedy if it would befall you. اعلموا, be sure, know for sure, أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها, that God can give the dead land life. God can bring the land back to life, بعد موتها, after it was dead, and so He can do it for you as well. قد بينا لكم الآيات, we have explained to you our signs, our verses, لعلكم تعقلون, so that you may use your intellect. Don't go after these petty, small, worldly desires. Be true believers and come back to faith. Then we move on to verse 19, wherein the Almighty is saying, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُلِهِ, those people who believe in God and His messengers, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصِّدِّيقُونَ, they are the ones who can attain the status of Siddiq, that is, people whose speech, whose actions, whose intentions, they are all consistent at the same level. There are no conflicts between what they say, what they intend, and what they speak. So, and that's the highest level one can attain as a believer after prophethood. Nobody can now become a prophet. That's something that has been now discontinued. The last prophet, Muhammad, may Allah's mercy be on him, was the one who delivered God's message. But after him, the best status one can get is of Siddiq, and the Almighty is saying that if you believe in God and you do good deeds, such people can belong to the category of Siddiq wa Shuhada, or those people can be Shuhada, the plural of Shaheed, witnesses, people who after Siddiq, the next best status is the people who give testimony of God's message and its truthfulness with their actions, with their speech. So much so is their commitment to this task that they lay down their lives for that purpose. So the Almighty says that if you believe truly in God and His messengers, such people are going to be amongst Siddiq and Shuhada, witnesses عند ربهم, before their Lord. لهم أجرهم, for them is going to be their reward. وَنُورُهُم, and their light, that is going to be come in handy in the next life. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and those who reject the truth knowingly, وَكَذَّبُوا, and deny it, بِآيَاتِنَا, and deny our signs, our verses, أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ, they are going to be the residents of the hell. Then the Almighty mentions the reality of this worldly life and says that, is this the life that you are so madly after and ignoring the next life? Ilamu, be absolutely sure, know for sure, annamal hayatud dunya, that the worldly life, laibun wa lahw, that is, this aspect of worldly life, alhamdulillah, this aspect of worldly life, which is lahvum wa laib, entertainment, wa zinatun, and embellishment, wa tafakhurum bainakum, and boasting of one another with the kind of worldly possessions that people have, wa takathurun fil amwali wal awlad, and competition with each other in increase of wealth and children. This aspect of worldly life, which you are so madly after, it's kamathali ghayth, it's like rainfall, ajab al-kuffar, which pleases the tiller, the cultivator, nabatuhu, its plantation, its growth, thumma yahiju. However, what happens is that it then turns yellow after it was green, fatarahu musfarran, and then it becomes just scattered debris. That's what happens to it. Thumma yakunu hutama, it becomes just debris. It turns into a yellow color, and then it's all useless. Wa fil akhirati azabun shadid, and in the next life it's going to be either severe punishment, maghfiratun, or it's going to be forgiveness min Allah, from God, wa ridwan, and His pleasure. Wa mal hayatud dunya illa mata'ul ghurur, and this worldly life is nothing except a delusion, a deception. So if you have made it your ultimate goal, you are in for great disappointment. We move to verse 22, which says, Ma asaba min musibatin fil ardi wala fi anfusikum illa fi kitabim min qabli an nabraha. Look here, if you are not spending because you are scared that if you're going to spend, you will have difficult times in the future. Ma asaba min musibatin, nothing befalls upon humans in the form of calamities, difficulties. Fil ard, neither on the earth, wala fi anfusikum, nor within yourselves, in your personal lives or somewhere else. Illa fi kitab, except that it's already there in a book, min qabli an nabraha, before we cause it to appear, we bring it out. That is, it's all known. Inna zalika ala Allahi yasir, and this is easy for us, for God. It's not something difficult for Him that He knows it from before. So what is the big deal? Why are you so concerned about what's happening in this worldly life to you, either in the form of success or in the form of failure, difficulty? This we are telling you, لِكَيْ لَا تَعْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ, so that you do not despair over what departs you, eludes you. وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ, nor you are overjoyed by what you get. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ, God doesn't like those who are deluded, boastful. They are overjoyed by their worldly achievements and boast of their achievements. Then we move on to verse 25 of this surah. The Almighty says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, indeed we sent messengers with clear signs. وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ, And we sent along with them the book, that is the balance. This book, God's book, is the balance. لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, so that they should behave, they should perform with people in a way that is just. They stand firmly on the basis of justice regarding what is right from what is wrong. That's what this book, which is a balance, is doing for you, is meant to do for you. وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ, and along with that we sent iron. فِيهِ بَأْسٌ شَدِيدٌ, in it there is military might as well. وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ, and there are other benefits for humans as well. Why have we done it? So that you thank God. وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ, and so that God may also know through it, through this iron and the military might it is able to create, مَنْ يَنْصُرُهُ وَرُسُولَهُ بِالْغَيْبِ, who are the ones who are going to support him and his messengers without seeing God. That is, he sends his messengers with a mission to fight against the enemies, to inflict God's punishment, and for that the companions are required to fight. They fight with the weapons which are made of iron. So this was sent by God to try you, to test you. Inna Allaha qawiyyun aziz. God doesn't know and doesn't need anyone. He is himself mighty and strong. Now we move on to the next surah, surah number 58, which is surah Al-Mujadallah. The first two verses say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها. We've heard, God has heard, سمع الله قول التي, the argument of the lady, allati, the statement of the lady, tujadiluka, who was arguing with you, O Prophet, fi zawjiha, regarding her husband. Watashtaki ilallah, and she was complaining to God. Wallahu yasma'u tahawurakuma, and God was listening to your discussion, to your argument. That's what happens when God's revelation is getting revealed. You know, he actually mentions sometimes some of the incidents that were taking place. Inna Allaha Samiyun Basir. God is all hearing, all watching. Allazina yuzahiruna minkum. Those of you who pronounce zihar amongst you, min nisaihim, to separate themselves from their wives. That was a way of divorcing which was done at the time of ignorance. People would say to their wives that you're like our mothers to us. So therefore, we've got now nothing to do with you anymore. The Almighty says, Ma hunna ummahatihim. They are certainly not their mothers. In ummahatuhum illallahi waladnahum. Their mothers are only the ones who gave birth to them. Wa innahum la yaquluna munkaran. What they have said is evil, is objectionable. Min al-qawli, an objectionable statement, was zura, and it's a lie. Wa inna Allah la'afuwun ghafur. However, God is pardoning and forgiving, because you were doing it without knowing it. God forgives you. Then we move on to verse 5, which says, Innal lazina yuhadduna Allah wa rasula. Those who oppose God and His Messenger, kubitu, they are the ones who are going to be disgraced. Kama kubital lazina min qablihim, the same way as those people were disgraced who came before them. Waqad anzalna ayatim bayyinat, and we have revealed verses which are absolutely clear. Walil kafirina azabun muhin, and for these disbelievers there is going to be humiliating punishment. Verse 7 says, Alam tara, have you not seen, Anna Allaha ya'lamu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard, that God knows whatever is in the heavens and in the earth. Ma yakunu min najwa thalathatin illa huwa rabi'uhum. There are no three people who are conversing with each other privately except that he is the fourth of them. Wala khamsatin, nor are five doing it, illa huwa sadisuhum, except that he is the sixth of them. Wala adna min zalika wala akthara, nor are there any more or less, illa huwa ma'ahum, except that he is always with them, aynama kanu, no matter wherever they are. Thumma yunabbi'uhum, then he is going to let them know, inform them, bima amilu, about what they used to be doing, yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of judgment. Inna allaha bi kulli shayin alim, indeed God knows everything. Then we move on to verse 20 of Surah Al-Mujadallah, which talks about the important principle of the Almighty that he has mentioned here very briefly. He says, Inna allazina yuhadduna Allah wa rasula, indeed those who oppose God and his messenger, ulaika fil azallin, those are the ones who are going to be humbled, humiliated. Katab Allah, God has written it down, God has decided, la aghlibanna, that I am most certainly going to dominate, overcome, ana, I, wa rusuli, and my messengers. Inna allaha qawiyyun aziz, indeed God is mighty, he is exalted, he is mighty. That is, it is God's decision that he is going to make sure that his messengers, if there are people, his nation, they reject him, then those people are going to be punished in this very life, and God and his messengers would prevail, are going to dominate. That's his decision. Now we move on to the next two surahs which form another pair, Al-Hashr, surah number 59, and Al-Mumtahina, surah chapter number 60. Both surahs are addressing weak believers and hypocrites. The first surah, that is Surah Al-Hashr, is pointing out the fate of the people of the book, particularly the Jews, to the hypocrites who used to be always consulting them and making them their friends and seeking their advice, that look at what has happened to them, save yourselves from that kind of eventuality. The second surah, Surah Al-Mumtahina, is telling believers to not have any relationship of friendship and love, sympathy for the enemies of the Almighty. Both surahs were revealed at the time when the Almighty, after the Hijrah migration, was doing tazkiyah, purification, tatheer, and cleansing of the believers, their faith, their conduct. It was all getting cleansed for them to become eligible for the paradise. So let's take first Surah Al-Hashr, the first few verses. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sabbaha lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth, they are exalting God. They are doing his tasbih, declaring him that he is free from all kinds of weaknesses and errors. Wa huwa al-azizul hakim, and he is exalted in might and he is wise. Huwa allazi, he is the one, akhrajal lazina kafaru, who expelled those people who had disbelieved, min ahlil kitab, from amongst the people of the book, min diyarihim, from their homes, li awwalil hashr, in the first gathering. That is, the ultimate hashr and gathering is going to take place on the day of judgment, but this was for them the first hashr. Ma zanantum an yakhruju wa zannu annahum mani'atuhum husunuhum min Allah. They did not imagine, they could not have imagined that they are going to go out. You could not imagine O Muslims, O believers, especially the weaker ones, you couldn't have imagined that they would have come out. وَظَنُّوا, and they themselves thought, أَنَّهُمْ مَانِعَتُهُمْ, that حُصُونُهُمْ, their fortresses, their castles are going to make them secure and prevent them, min Allah, from God's punishment. فَأَتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَمْ يَحْتَسِبُوا. So God struck them, came to them from where they could have not even imagined. وَقَذَفَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الرُّعْبَ. And what happened was that He cast terror in their hearts. So as a result, يُخْرِبُونَ بُيُوتَهُمْ وَبِأَيْدِي يُخْرِبُونَ بُيُوتَهُمْ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ وَأَيْدِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And as a result, they were destroying their own houses, their own homes, through their own hands and the believers' hands as well. فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. So learn your lesson, O people of vision. Be warned. This is something which is an ibra, that is something that has happened to others, and you need to learn your lessons through what has happened to them. بَلَوْلَا أَنْ كَتَبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْجَلَاءَ. And had it not been that God had decreed for them the punishment of evacuation, of leaving the place, لَعَذَّبَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا, He would have certainly punished them in this life. وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابُ النَّارِ. And for them in the hereafter is going to be the punishment of fire. From there we move on to verse 7, where the Almighty is saying, مَا أَفَاءَ اللَّهُ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْقُرَى. Whatever spoils of war God has bestowed upon His messenger from the people of the township, that is, the spoils of war which soldiers get without undertaking a military expedition, without facing any resistance from the enemy, is what is called fair, the wealth of fair. The Almighty is telling believers, telling the messenger, that whatever the spoils of war you were able to lay your hands on when these people of the book, as they fled, they left their homes, it was something that you didn't get as a consequence of you fighting against them. So therefore, they are فَلِلَّهِ وَلِلرَّسُولِ. They are for God exclusively and the messenger, وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى, and the relatives, close relatives of the messenger, وَالْيَتَامَى, the orphans, وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and the poor, وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, travelers. Why? كَيْلَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ, so that it will not be a perpetual distribution among the rich from among you. That is, God doesn't want that this wealth that Muslims, believers have been able to get hold of should be given to only rich people. Wealth ideally should be given to the poor people. However, God doesn't force the rich people to do it, but those assets which are the ownership of the nation, which are national assets, they are meant primarily for the poor people to benefit from. So that's what this verse is saying. Then we move on to verses 18 onwards of this surah, where the Almighty is saying, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, believers, ittaqullah, be God conscious. Wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat lighadin, and let every human, every soul be careful, look at what he is putting across, giving forward, sending forward for his tomorrow. Because whatever we do in this world is actually what we are sending for the next life. These deeds of ours are going to become a currency for us to benefit from or be punished as a consequence through what we are doing. So be careful. Fattaqullah, and be conscious of God's presence. Remain within your limits, be God conscious. Inna Allaha khabirum bima ta'maloon. God knows what you do. Wala takunu kallazina nasullah. And don't be like those people who forgot God. Fa'ansahum anfusahum. So as a consequence, God made them forget themselves. He made them forget their own welfare. Ulaika humul fasiqun. These are the people who have gone beyond limits. They are defiantly disobedient. La yastavi ashabun nari wa ashabul jannah. Be absolutely sure that the people of the fire and the people of the paradise, they are not the same. The next life has two different possibilities, and those possibilities are poles apart, miles apart from each other as far as consequences are concerned. Ashabul Jannati humul faizun. The people, inhabitants of Jannah, of the paradise, are the ones who are going to be the real successful people, attainers, and those who are going to be in the fire are going to be doomed and will be a failure. Now we move on to the last of these surahs, the Surah 60, Surah Al-Mumtahina. We take the first verse, which says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, believers, la tattakhizu aduwwi wa aduwwakum awliya. Do not make my and your enemies your friends and people whom you seek advice from and protection from. Tulquna ilayhim bil mawadda. You send them messages of love and sympathy. وَقَدْ كَفَرُوا بِمَا جَاءَكُم مِّنَ الْحَقِّ. Even though they have disbelieved and rejected what has come to you in the form of truth, in the form of God's message. يُخْرِجُونَ الرَّسُولَ. They have been expelling the messenger from his city of origin, Mecca. وَإِيَّاكُمْ, and you as well. أَنْتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ رَبِّكُمْ. Simply because of the fact that you believed in God, your Lord. You do not have any friendship with them. In kuntum kharajtum jihadan fi sabili. If you migrated doing jihad, striving in my way, wabtigha mardati, and you did it to get my pleasure. Tusirruna ilayhim bil mawadda. Don't secretly have contacts with them and exchanging messages of love and concern. وَأَنَا أَعْلَمُ بِمَا أَخْفَيْتُمْ وَمَا أَعْلَنْتُمْ. And I know what you do in hiding secretly and what you do openly. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْهُ مِنْكُمْ. And whoever does it amongst you, فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. He has gone away astray from the right path. Then the Almighty mentions in verses 8 and 9 of this surah, La yanhaakumullahu anil lazina lam yuqatilukum fid deen. Look here, the directives that we have given you to not be friends with people who have disbelieved and are the enemies of our faith, our message. La yanhaakumullahu. God doesn't stop you, anil lazina lam yuqatilukum, from people who have not fought against you, fid deen, in your religion, because of your religion. Walam yukhrijukum min diyarikum. And he is not telling you, stopping you from those who have expelled you from your homes. Antabarruhum, that you be good with them. But tuqsitu ilayhim, and that you treat them fairly. Inna Allaha yuhibbul muqsitin. Be sure that God likes those people who are fair, who are just. Innama yanhaakumullahu. God is only stopping you, anil lazina qatalukum, from those people who have fought against you, fid deen, because of religion, because of your religion. Wa akhrajukum, and who expel you, min diyarikum, from your homes. Wa zaharu ala ikhrajikum an tawallawhum, and who made sure that you go out. They pressurized you for you to be removed from that city, to be expelled from the city. God is preventing you, antawallahum, that you make them friends. Don't make them friends. God is not stopping you from making those non-believers who are not against your religion, who have not fought against you in religious matters, who did not expel you from your city and from your homes because of your religious beliefs. Be good to them. Have good relations with them. God only wants you that you do not have friendly, good relations of love, concern, and sympathy for those who are God's enemies and your enemies. فَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ, and be sure that whoever makes them friends, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, then these are the people who are unfair, wrongdoers, evildoers. They are causing harm to themselves alone and nobody else. May the Almighty enable us to understand His message properly and truly, and may He to get the opportunity, the privilege of following it to the best of our abilities.